What is going on, everybody? Mach 39 here with another video on this RS4 II, and in this video we're going to complete the vehicle. There's a couple of things we got to go over before we drop that engine in and route that fuel line and pop those servo horns on. So we're going to go over those before we do that. There's one thing I wanted to note before we go over anything, and that's the wheel nut itself. You don't want to go putting these on and taking them off constantly, because that blue ring in there is plastic and it does wear out. So if you have issues with your vehicle where your wheels are constantly falling off, you want to replace that. And you don't want to just keep cranking that down, because you are going to cause a bind, and this wheel will be stiffer than the rest of your wheels. You want all your wheels running as free as possible. So make sure you replace those when need be. But in this vehicle, I'm going to show you something else that happens when you decide to crank these nuts down a little too much. So we all know that the inside is a hex that holds the wheel, and this hex is made of plastic. Whoops, I dropped a little pin. It's fine. And in this plastic hex, there's a little lip. Sorry for the focus. I'll try to get that for you, but there's a little lip in here. You can see it. It's right here. So that little lip rides on the inside of the bearing that spins. This outside of the bearing does not spin. So when you go cranking that nut down, you're gonna end up smushing this hex and causing a bind on that wheel, especially if you rub that that lip off. So you want to make sure that you replace those nuts when need be, and you don't go cranking down those nuts to get that wheel to stay on. You want to replace that. So let me get this wheel back on and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, we're gonna go over a couple more things that can cause binds. But if you took the proper procedures and precautions when you started your build from back to front, and you made sure you didn't have any binds, and you made sure that your bearings were good, every single bearing in your system, you shouldn't have any issues when you come down to having the complete build. So as long as you have all of that set, you should be good to go. So a couple things that I wanted to show you how free this system is. So I'm gonna just grab this wheel here and just spin it. You see how free that back wheel spins? It's basically at the same rate as this left wheel. I'm gonna grab the front left wheel. Sorry about that, I'm looking through the camera, so it's a little awkward. And look at how free that is. Now I'm gonna note one thing. In my previous video, I was talking about these rubber O-rings that the factory says to put in here. And in this vehicle, they didn't have any in the rear. And I decided to put one on the inside and one on the inside of the wheel. And it did cause a slight bind. So I did take out the one on the inside of the wheel. Now the rear is as free as the front. So something just as simple as that little O-ring, from me just trying to take up a little bit of slack from the system, caused a slight bind in the system. So when people are telling you need to shim your system or blah, 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 or you think you need to shim it because you think something is a little too loose, you might want to leave it that way, because it is that way for a reason. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reach the opposite side while I spin this left wheel again, and watch the front wheels, how they spin. And they spin at a nice even rate. There's no cogging, there's no jumping. You don't see one wheel moving faster than the other. They're all moving basically the same speed as the back one. Maybe a little slower, because you have to run through the whole belt system, but you can see how free it is. Now there's another way I'm going to show you how to check your bind in your belt system. Is to just grab your spur gear or whatever you want to call it, and just give it a spin. And you can see how free that is. So if you want to take it another step further, you can find yourself a nice flat surface, put your vehicle down, and give your vehicle a roll. And see if you have any binds in your system as you roll your vehicle around. And after all that checks out, you can basically put your vehicle together, figure out where you're gonna route your fuel lines, route those. I like to route my fuel lines right before I drop my engine in, because sometimes it is hard to get to this nipple here. So I pop that in first and try to get a mock-up of where I want it. And then I would set everything up. So I'm gonna take the vehicle off the stand, and I might be doing one other thing, but we'll see when we come into the next clip. Give me 1 second. All right, you guys, so there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about that if set improperly, they will cause a bind and it will cause a drag on your vehicle. And that's one is this front tensioner. My tensioner was actually set too tight from the previous owner. I've never reset it myself. I always just thought it was how it was supposed to be. But now that I'm taking apart the vehicle and putting it back together, I see that it was set improperly from the previous owner. I bought this middle tensioner and I set that improperly and I put a huge scar down the belt. You got to remember not to tighten these too much because of the bind that they cause, but also these are split bearings. These aren't just one solid bearing that rides on the belt. So you can, you know, potentially ruin your belt by over tightening that as well. So you remember, you don't need much on it. This is basically an oval from factory with no tensioner, and it seems like it'll pop off just from, you know, riding. Actually, it looks like if you look at it, it'll just come off, but it rides just fine, and I never had an issue with it. I just bought the tensioner because I feel more comfortable, and as you can see, it's pretty loose. You know, it's not even tight at all. So just make sure that you don't over tighten your tensioners as well, because they will cause a bind. So a quick overview of what not to do is not to over tighten your lug nuts, and replace them if need be. Tensioners, don't over tighten them, center and front. And I'm gonna say also the wheel inside, because remember, there is a tensioner inside of this diff. So remember not to over tighten that one as well. And if you went over your vehicle from front to back, you shouldn't have any issues with tension binding or any dragging your vehicle at all. I mean, this is a belt-driven vehicle, so you are going to have you are going to have some drag. So be mindful of that. You're not going to be able to totally eliminate it, but you want to get it to, you know, be as minimal as possible. So let's get on to the next set. All right, so I'm kind of going backwards, you guys. I'm gonna remove this tensioner. I'm gonna sit the car on its side right quick. Let me change my bit. I'm gonna remove these two screws. And if you've been watching, you know what these screws are for. And you may have in mind what's going to happen right now. Now, hopefully this works out, because I did try it, but I didn't try it in this fashion. So I'm going to pop this belt off for you. Pull off the transmission, and then we'll be right back. All right, so here's the single speed transmission off of this RS4 2. It is a 44 tooth spur, which most of them are. You might be able to get bigger wheels or not, but we're doing something totally different. So we're gonna disassemble this and try to get something else going on. Give me a second, I keep dropping stuff. So we're just gonna pop this off. Put that to the side. You know, magnetic tools are great until they stick to things that you don't want them to stick to. Then they're an issue. But in this case, I need it at the moment. So if you're wondering why am I taking this apart, it's because, whoops, there we go, dropping stuff again. I have a 2-speed transmission. Now, one thing about this transmission, this is half RS4 2 transmission and half RS4 3 transmission. So there's 43, what is that? first gear is actually the second gear from a RS4 So if it's directly up here, usually you would have a 44 up here, and this is a 41. But we're gonna see if this works. And if this works, there's an option for you guys. If you burned out your 44 and you have a RS4 sitting around that you can't use, you may be able to use one of the parts off of it. Like I said, a lot of these parts are interchangeable. You can actually fit the 47 up here as well, and it fits on the vehicle, but you need the right bell housing to run it. And the original bell housing that comes off of the RS4 wasn't sitting correctly for me, especially with my T3.0 and the stock motor mounts. It just wasn't sitting correct. Maybe if you had motor mounts, you may be able to slide and play with the mesh, but we're running off stock motor mounts, so we're gonna try to get this as close to original as possible and see how it goes. So let's get this back together. And this is the same thing as, you know, the single speed. Basically just slide it through. Actually, put my brake in here first. Now, I did notice that when you do use a 2-speed, it takes up a little more room because of this clutch here. But it's not too bad. Okay, so we're gonna pop the pin in now. So that's gonna go into the inner hole. And then we're gonna pop this piece on here. Remember, there's a split there and you want that to go into there. Turn your brake till it slides on. And remember, you want that pin to disappear after you put this together. It's kind of hard to do with me looking into the, see, it's falling out the backside. Last thing you want is to lose that pin while you're in motion. So make sure you get that pin to disappear and it's not falling out anywhere. So that's all set. So now we're gonna pop our next pin in. Pulley cover. And then we'll pop this E-clip back on. And that's it for that. So make sure you line it up, make sure it spins. You don't have any binds or anything. Make sure your one-way bearing is working for your first gear. And let's get this back in the vehicle. I'm gonna do that off camera. So let me do that right quick. Now just a quick one, before I even tighten anything up, this is still loose. So when you put this belt on, give it a quick twist to make sure everything is seated properly. So there, you know, you wanna get that done. Then what I like to do is line it up and just pop my screws in loosely. You don't want to tighten these down yet because you still want to get that outer belt on. So you want your transmission to have some type of movement at the moment. Make sure your teeth line up. Oops, sorry about that. It's kind of hard looking through the phone, but it basically just rolls on. And falls right into place. Anyways, that's how it is from factory. So you see there's literally no tension on it. So just to have a slight tension on it, you know, with any type of arm that you get will suit purpose. And, you know, you don't have to go cranking it down like I said. Just a little bit of tension is just fine. So let me tighten this up and then I'll get back to you guys. All right, so now that you got your new transmission in, you want to go over your car again and make sure that there's no binds. You know, pick up your vehicle, spin the wheels, make sure that they're spinning nice and free. You want to go in, grab your first gear, spin it, make sure it's spinning all of your wheels. Make sure there's no binds as you spin that, which is fine there. But this system is different than the single speed. The single speed is locked to the shaft, so as you move it forward in reverse, these are spinning. But as you can see, depending on how fast you spin your vehicle, those will spin at different rates, and one might stop and not spin at all. So you want to also make sure that this inner one is spinning freely, because that's your second gear. So you don't ever want that one to lock up. And then you just want to make sure that the one-way bearing is working here. As you can see, it's pulling my finger back. So we're all good there. So as long as that's all set, you can go into mocking up your motor. And when I say mocking up your motor, I mean mocking up your motor. You want to just put it in, make sure the mesh fits correctly, which that's what we're hoping for at the moment. And then you can move into taking your motor back out one more time to route your fuel lines. You never want to route your fuel lines with your motor in place, because literally that is your nipple there, and they want you to come out through that hole up there. So you would have to, your engine is going to be sitting here and your exhaust is going to come across. And even if you don't, you're still not going to have any room with this post here. So, you know, be mindful of those things. So it just comes with the territory of owning a nitro vehicle. You got to put things on and take them off. And I'm pretty sure that's with any vehicle in general, if you want your vehicle to run correct. So, you know, you gotta do these things. You gotta get them done if you want your vehicle to run. So let me mock up this motor. Actually, I gotta figure out which bell housing I'm gonna use, which I think this is the original for the RS4 2-speed, and we all know that this is the one for the RS4 3. Now I'm wondering if this one will work with that gearing setup, but most likely it will be this one, but I'm hoping it's this one. So you see what I'm saying? So there's two bell housings, two options. Hopefully any of them work, and no matter which one work, I still have to put in both, because I want to test both. Because as I said, I want to run the RS4 3, so I'm going to try this one first. So if this one works, I'm not even going to try the RS4 2 bell housing, because I want to ride this one. So I'm going to try this one first. But if this one doesn't work, engine has to come back out and we have to try this one again. And if this one doesn't work as well, then the engine has to come out and the transmission has to come out, and then we have to go back to single speed till I can obtain more gearing, more spurs, or more bell housings in general. So let me put these on, and then we'll get back to the video. All right, guys, so now that your whole setup is done and you got your engine mocked into place, now is a good time to check for any binds or any dragging in your vehicle again. So you definitely want to check this, especially when mocking in your motor and checking your gear mesh. So let's flip the vehicle over to, you know, where all the good stuff is. As you can see, I put my tensioner back on. I'm going to give the car a quick roll back. As you can see, it's all spinning. But if you give it a quick spin, that's a nice free spin there. You're not binding up. There's nothing dragging in that situation. The only thing that, in my opinion, for my setup, is that there's a spacer or a washer in between, you know, your flywheel nut and your bearing. I'm going to get a thinner one just to open up this gap right here slightly. Other than that, I think this is pretty much set. So, you know, this is just proof of concept that You can take things and mix and match them and get them to work. This is apparently a 43 from a RS4 3. You know, I had to replace a 44, which is the original for the RS4 2, and it works just fine. So the 43 is probably going to give me a quicker takeoff because this is going to be the first gear. It's not going to be a crazy takeoff. It's going to be a quicker takeoff, which will allow me to switch faster. I'm not going to get a higher top speed because second gear is still the same. So, but we got the 2-speed transmission in, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work just fine. And I just wanted to show you guys that it is proof of concept that you can take many different spurs from HPI and the RS4 family, from the RS4 2 to the Super Nitro to the RS4 3 now, and you can mix and match your gears and figure out what works best for you. Now you can do a 47 in here, but it's not going to work, you know, as a direct bolt-in. You're going to have to get a motor mount so you can shift your motor around. You might have to get different bell housings to play with the mesh, and maybe a whole host of other things that I don't know about yet. But as far as I do know, that the 43 from the RS4 3 fits the RS4 2 just fine. No issues. Also, if you want an in-depth review on the 2-speed transmission, A2RC has 2 of the best reviews on these transmissions, hands down. That is how I got the idea of rebuilding this transmission with a RS4 3 spur. All right, guys, and here she is, 99% complete. Give you a quick little spin of her. I still got to tape down that receiver. And the only reason I say 99% complete, I have no rear body mounts. So till I get those, I will not be riding with a body. All right, guys, so let's get into this fuel line routing. You're gonna come out of the nipple right here. Don't mind the fuel in there. The tank and the line is reused from the RS4. So you're just gonna come out of the nipple, right up this post. You can zip tie it there if you want. There's a little hole up here at the top of the electronics tray. You're gonna come right out of that hole, right behind your handle. Let's go to the other side. You can ride right under your throttle linkage, right under your brake linkage, and then you're gonna curve around behind your antenna and right into your carburetor. I know it's kind of scary putting that right under your linkage, but you should have enough room. I'll show you that I have enough room. And my brake linkage is actually sitting on top of my inline fuel filter, so that you can see I don't have any problems moving or anything. It does touch it, but it's totally fine. Opens 100%. I have brake. I think I have a little too much brake, but you know, that's what happens when you don't have a good controller and receiver. So you make do with what you have. You know, you try to enjoy your vehicle and you hope not to break anything. So now next thing is to take this thing off for a test ride, see how it goes. Hopefully them gears hold up, and that's about it for now. Okay, so it was just one thing I forgot to show you, and a couple optional things I wanted to show you. So as you can see, there's a zip tie holding the fuel line in place, so that way it doesn't bounce around too much. And as you can see, it's pretty stable, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues there. Also, there are optional cone washers, or one cone washer that goes here. I seen on A2RC's video. I don't have that, and it is optional, so it's up to you if you want to put it. I decided to just put one small washer, and then I decided to double up and put one back here. Be very careful if you do decide to put these washers in, because you do lose thread. You don't want to lose that nut when you're trying to drive or you're trying to brake. Whoops. Also down here, if you're gonna wrap your servo like I did, make sure you tuck your wire down here. You don't want it to get too close to this wheel. It's not gonna cut it, but it will brush against this plastic coating and rub it off. Then you'll have bare wires. Then you may have a short. So be careful with that. Other than that, that's about it. The vehicle is set, ready to hit the road. That's about it. Just one more thing I want to go over, and that's the air filter. This is the air filter that came with the T3.0, and it just seemed like anywhere around here was too close to these servo horns and the throttle linkage in general. And just turning it back this way just gave me the perfect amount of room. It's not touching the fuel line at all, even though it looks like it is. Got plenty of room from your spurs, and also got plenty of room from your brake linkage. You can still reach all your needles. This one's kind of close, but you can still reach it and use it if you need to. The other problem that I had with this vehicle, I don't know what this header is, but this header was rubbing on this wheel. Obviously, whoever had this header before, you can't really tell, but there's a little silver spot in there. They were actually rubbing as well. I think they were using screws that were too long and must have pushed the header out. I just took a screwdriver in there and bent it back, and it seems just fine. The wheel is still free. It's not touching at all. It is pretty close, but you know, gotta make do with what we have. And I think this is gonna be a fun one. The sad part is that I took so much time to build it. I know I said I wanted to run it and I wanted a runner. I kind of don't want to run it anymore because it runs so smooth. It's like one of those things where, you know, you take so much time and pride into building something, and when it comes out better than what you expected, you're like, oh, I kind of don't want to ruin it now. But it's okay. I have a couple other projects coming up, so this will be my daily driver. So this is gonna stay like this. It may get another engine. It may stay with this engine, I'm not sure. But for right now, this is what it is. Besides the receiver and transmitter eventually being replaced, it's gonna stay like this. And then maybe the servos one day, because I really don't like these servos. They're very slow, but you know, they work for what I needed them to do right now, especially for the price I got them for. So we're good there for now. And let me go get to that test run, and then I'll get this video out to you guys. What is going on, everybody? We're outside right now, getting it ready for a test run. Just waiting for the parking lot to clear up a little bit. I just got off work, so I'm gonna charge up my phone for a bit, and then I'll get back to the video. I don't know how much I'm gonna be able to record of me driving because I'm using my phone. I don't have a tripod or any mount to mount up the phone, but we'll see what we can do. All right, guys, so it pretty much died down here. I'm about to fuel up using some Sidewinder, 20%, 16% oil content. So I'm gonna fuel her up, and then we're gonna get ready to go. Start it up, rolling nice. Look at it go. Guys, so we did go on a practice run, and I just got a short clip of the car running. Unfortunately, we had some issues. One small issue is we have a leak right under here. You can't really see. You're not going to be seeing with the lighting, but I just got to get a new rubber for the exhaust. But the main issue is that this servo kept freezing up and getting stuck. Luckily, I was literally at brake when it happened, and the car would not take off or brake anymore. It just stayed in a neutral position. So I'm gonna have to change out that servo. Other than that, the car idled fine. The little bit I drove it drove very well. So off to changing the servo now. All right, guys, this is why you check your vehicles and you test it out. My servos went bad on one of my first test runs, so I had to replace them with the RS4 3 servos. They fit just fine. As you can see, there's still some fuel in the fuel line from testing. I actually came in a little while ago. I just wanted to get this video done because, as you can see, I popped my rear belt. So to replace that belt without disassembling the whole rear end, you're gonna have to basically remove this screw, that screw there, pop off this shock, these two screws there, because there's pins holding this into place. Give me 1 second. Okay, and on the bottom of the vehicle, you're gonna wanna take off that screw there, that one there, this one down here, and then this one as well. These two are gonna be for the bearing carrier. If you don't remove that, you're not gonna be able to replace that belt. All right, so on the back side, you only have to remove one because this isn't pinned in apparently. And then your rear end should pull right out. Sorry, I didn't get to show that, but it literally just pulls right out. You pull out your wheel, and then you have to slide off your bearing carrier. Slides right off, and now you can replace your belt. And replacing this, remember to line up your dog bone, or to make it easier, you can remove your top turnbuckle, just pop it off. Your wheel will swing out. You can remove the dog bone totally and put it in a little easier. But as you can see, the belt is on. So remember to replace your bearing carrier, and then go on by putting everything else back together. Your bearing carrier does go on first, so you want to put that on first, and if you want, you can pop the two screws in the bottom. All right guys, sorry it's such a long one. I just didn't want it to keep dragging on with part 3, part 4, part 5, so we're gonna leave it at 4 parts, call it a day. I had to replace the servos, as you know. I had to replace the rear belt, as you know, but that goes with testing a vintage vehicle. If you don't have these things on hand, they're brand new, you know, the old parts might be worn and tattered, so you might have to replace them, you know, so unfortunate, but it happens. So we all know that this belt is gonna go soon. Actually, I have 2 of them to replace it, so I'll wait till it goes before I replace it. Thank you for watching the video, and just get out there, burn as much nitro as you can. I know I am, till I have another issue. Till the next video, thank you all for watching. Thank you for being patient with me, and have fun out there, guys. Remember, check your gear. You know, you don't want any issues, you don't want any runaways. And I don't know if I said, but the issues on my RS4 3, I think, are due to the servos, because the servos that died in here are the same type of servos I used in that vehicle. So I blamed it on the outdated throttle linkage and all that, but it wasn't that in general. It was actually the servo. The servo was just erratic and it wasn't performing as it was supposed to, and I didn't take note of that, and that's the reason I feel like the RS4 3 is now totaled. But you know, you live, you learn, you buy quality parts, and you shouldn't have any issues no matter the age of your vehicle. Have fun, guys.